Just what do you need to know to follow this particular very brief 10-minute section that I'm going to read from Through the Valley of the Nest of Spiders. A gay adolescent who works as a garbage man's helper in the town of Diamond Harbor on the Georgia coast, 17-year-old Eric Jeffers has gone out to Gilead Island to stay overnight with friends Jay and Mex in the decaying mansion once owned and lived in by Robert Kyle III, a black multimillionaire who started the Kyle Foundation to improve the lives of black gay men living on the mainland. That night, beside Jay, Mex, and Eric, no one is in the huge old house except the housekeeper Hugh and Jay's uncle Shad, a bitter, mentally unstable old man confined to a wheelchair. In the middle of the night, Eric wakes and decides it would be fun to explore the decrepit 50-room mansion naked. And when he crosses between the couches and armchairs scattered through the great second-floor sitting room, from beside and behind him came a sound like a squeaking wheel. Naked in the great room, Eric turned. Crouching, he staggered back 6 or 7 inches. At the same time, chills enveloped him, so many and so thoroughly they did not feel like something within his body, but like waves and waves around him, rolling through him, across him, over him. He closed his eyes tightly and opened them again. What he'd seen was Shad in his wheelchair directly behind him. Only with a blink, it was a huge Shad, a Shad 3 times as large as life. But that was impossible. Was it Hugh in his dressing gown, sitting in some great chair, watching him? The figure in the moonlight was, Eric made himself stand up straight, 20 feet away in the corner. It was not directly behind him, but it was big, and he realized now it wasn't a seated figure at all. Again outside, a wind made the sash grate against the sill. A branch beyond the window moved before the moon, and smoky light drifted back and forth over the immense statue. Eric stepped forward. A very large bear? Bull? Boar? Was it stuffed? Real? He stepped closer. Nor was it rearing on its hind leg, one claw high, one claw, no, not a claw, but a hand out, as if to sweep in the world. It was a bull, only it squatted like a man, or it kneeled anyway, one knee down. The other, up before it, was some immense bird's claw, big enough to grip Eric's head. Those were wings back in the shadow, but not bird's wings. They looked like a bat's, only not any bat Eric had ever seen. Somehow, because he hadn't been looking for it, he'd missed it in its dim corner. But moving with the branch outside the window, moonlight kept making the forward of the 2 arms move. At last he was right in front of it. It was a minotaur, or something like one, winged and kneeling on one leg in the corner. Between its thighs, the one it kneeled on seemed human enough, as was its great foot. He could see the huge length of its tail, like a serpent thick as a thigh, rolling and coiling behind it. Knowing it was a statue, Eric reached out and up, expecting to feel the rough fur of ancient taxidermy on its forearm. He touched the huge, extended hand. It was metal, black with tarnish. Eric's heart began to still. Its pedestal represented rock and branches with a shell among them, and a starfish, as if it kneeled on a length of beach. Bent before him, the feathered knee shone where the patina had worn away. He imagined generations of children during holidays in this hall, at Christmas and high summer, Halloween and Easter, feeling the parts that extended, wearing the stain from its bronze, so that the yellow metal showed through, turned platinum by the moon. Eric backed away, breathing more easily. At last he turned, walked into the archway, and started down the stairs. Then, with a hand on the heavy banister, and started up the stairs. Then, with a hand on the heavy banister and the energy of the night's adventure, he began to run. Maybe I'll come out 1,000 years from now. And came out at the head of the broad railing in a small room, small compared to the room below, which, as he turned to orient himself, he realized was round. About the walls, crowded bookshelves alternated with shelf-to-roof windows. 2 of the windows had shades pulled down, one only a few inches, one at least 2.5 feet. Beneath them, under moonlight, through old panes, he could see the sea. On a wide desk that fit, as if it had been made for the room, against the curved wall, stood an orrery. Eric knew neither the word nor what the object was. It looked, however, like some complex, oversized medieval gyroscope, sitting on a snake coiled over the back of the great cast tortoise, its base. Supported over it were rings and spheres, clear and scrolled, with scales and rods projecting from the crystal at its center. Now, on those rods, he began to recognize moons and planets. That one, because of the rings, he realized was Saturn. He reached for it, started to move one globe, and all the other rods and globes began to sweep at the same time, some faster, some slower. He jerked his hand back, as if the material universe around him might topple and tumble from his disturbance. The model stopped moving. Turning away, Eric looked at the books on the shelves. No, the room wasn't round, it was octagonal. The ones that stood in moonlight, so that he could read the titles and authors embossed in dark leather, were 3 volumes of François Villon by Tiffany Thayer. Travels in Arabia Deserta, Volumes 1 and 2, by Charles M. Doty. Die Welt aus Wille und Vorstellen, also in 2 volumes, by Arthur Schopenhauer. Several unnumbered volumes by Benedict de Spinoza. Ethica, Tractatus Theologico-Politicus, Principia Philosophiae Cartesianae, Tractatus de Intellectus Emendatione, Cogitata Metaphysica, Korte voorhanden van God, de Mensch en desself Welstand, and still other books by Lessing, Goethe, and Novalis. Shelf after shelf of books bore the same titles in worn gold letters, Comédie Humaine. Under it were 2 volumes of Le Juif Errant, and 3 of Les Mystères de Paris, and 6, 7, 8 of Les Sept Péchés Capitaux. Momentarily, the room flared silver, flickered, and thunder filled it up, then fumbled away. Eric looked out the window. He looked out one of the others and was surprised to see drops on the glass. A storm started? On one shelf directly in front of him, he saw a framed picture. No, with the moonlight coming in behind, he realized it was a glassed-over newspaper photo. Across the top of the page, with its feathered edge, it said, "The Hemmings Herald." The headline read, "Heiresses Meet on Gilead." The date was 1923. Each woman stood with a man. The man beside the first was a solid-looking fellow in Western clothing who could easily have been an American Indian. Black braids hung at the side of his head. The man beside the second and the man beside the third were both distinctly African American. Were they servants? Eric wondered, though the tall and heavily braceleted one had her hand on the black man's arm, which made Eric doubt it. Below was a line of names: Mabel Dodge Lewin, Tony Lewin, Nancy Kennard, Harry Prouder, Doris Pitkin, Robert Kyle. And white light filled up the windows both sides of the wall. As he looked, the photograph turned black. In the rectangle of glass over it, now Eric saw the reflecting books and bookshelves on the wall behind. He stepped backwards, then turned to look at the other bookshelves as lightning lit them. Thunder filled up the room. The lightning faded. For moments, Eric thought the tower was cracking and crumbling, and moments later, again, he was looking at the three couples smiling under glass. I'm not sure if any of you have know who those names are. Google them when you get home. You might find it of interest. Okay.